Hello everyone, I'm Jens, I'm your host today, and thank you very much for joining in our session today. This is the first webinar in our new series, which we call the Digital Trader Summit. And yes, we are very excited to have already more than 300 registered participants today in this webinar. I'm sure that's very much because of Chris is joining us, an excellent speaker we have on board with us. So I'm sitting here alone in the enmacc offices and no one is here. We're in home office as well. Since we have settled quite well, I would say, after these 3 weeks that everything is running smoothly, we have time to organize these webinars and getting excited with the trader community is always, getting connected with the trader community is always when we get excited. And we had an excellent physical trader summit last year in Munich and got really great feedback, awesome feedback from the participants, and we wanted definitely to continue that in 2020. Now it's not possible to invite everyone again to Munich, so we thought a digital format is the best we can do, and I think it gives us additional opportunities actually, and I hope you can just sometimes difficult to spare a whole day to travel to Munich, but switching in for pieces of knowledge and exchange here of 30 minutes to an hour, I think that should be possible in the daily routine. So, as I said already, Chris is with us. He's a well-known expert on recovery and sleep, actually. He was one of our highlights last year in Munich, and while it's not a typical trader topic, I think especially in the times of the Corona crisis, everyone feels that taking care of ourselves and having a good sleep is absolutely essential. Many of us feel that it's more difficult now in these circumstances to separate the private life and the business. Many of us, I think, work actually more because they have to in this environment, being responsible for business, being responsible for employees, and this is sometimes hard to manage. I can say as well myself, I'd love to get more sleep and better sleep. And I have to say that after having heard already Chris' presentation, so I will be very, pay lots of attention again today to the details and the recommendations he has for us. Chris, I'm directly handing over to you. Thanks for having you again. And technical details, we have at the end foreseen that you can join in a Q&A session. I'm sure you have some exciting questions. Please simply use on the lower bar of the Zoom application, use the Q&A part. And then you can enter your questions there. We will pick them up afterwards and share them with the whole team. All right, Chris, now it's your stage, please.
Thank you, Jens, for this very warm welcome. Quick question for everyone. Can you see my slide? All right, fantastic. Yeah, I'm pretty honored and privileged to talk to a lot of companies right now about this topic of performance recovery. But as Jens said, I was invited last year to your summit in September in Munich, and I have a lot of friends in your company, so it's really a great honor to have you. And thank you all who dialed into this webinar for investing your precious time with me. Like Jens said, we have more on our agenda like we used to, so I feel very privileged that you spent this time with us, and I promise I will deliver value for you. So my name is Chris, and we have a packed agenda, so let me get right to the point. Most recovery advice that you get out there, be it in books or the internet or from somewhere else, really sucks. Not because it's scientifically wrong, but it's unrealistic for people like you and me who live and work in what we call high stress environments. So what I will not tell you in the next 35 minutes is that you need to meditate an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. I will not tell you that you need to become a yoga master or sleep an hour longer or put your mobile phone away. This is not what I'm going to tell you. What I will tell you is about tools and strategies that will transform your energy levels, your performance, and your health and your well-being in business and life. And I will show you how you can approach performance recovery more strategically, but without changing your lifestyle altogether. Okay? And we will get introduced into a tactic that is called deep sleep densification. Deep sleep densification is a sleep strategy that concentrates the most rejuvenative part of our sleep, which is deep sleep, into the first hours of the night, thereby optimizing recovery. It's kind of like high intensity training, which we know from sports, but just for sleep, all right? And let me give you a promise that you can rule me against. There is not a single person on this broadcast whose energy level we couldn't transform with deep sleep densification. Okay, but before we dive in, let me give you 2 or 3 minutes about my personal history so you know why I'm pretty passionate about this topic. Today it's 7 years, 4 months, and 26 days ago. Standing at a train track somewhere in the landscape with tears running down my face and just about to jump in front of the next train that's only 100 meters away. I'm sweating like hell, my body's pumped with adrenaline, my heart is hammering like crazy in my chest, and I hear this loud piercing sound of the train brakes in my ears. The train comes closer, like 80 meters, 60, 40, 20 meters, and all of a sudden, everything around me appears like in slow motion. I can even look the train driver in his eyes and gaze his panic. But how could it possibly come this far? It all started way better in my life. I was 6 years old, 1985, and I watched Boris Becker win Wimbledon. And my dream was born. I wanted to become a tennis player and win Wimbledon myself. And I was quite okay during my youth. I spent my teens in the German top 10 of tennis rankings. But when I finished school and really started to become a professional player, a chronic shoulder injury ended my dream before it could even start. So I started studying business and started my career afterwards in a strategy consulting company called Roland Berger over here in Germany. And I spent fantastic 4 years there. And afterwards, I had the opportunity to go to one of my clients, become a manager, and set up the financial services business. And I had the chance to work with the founder of this company pretty closely together, a pretty inspirational entrepreneur. And at that point, my next career dream approached. And this was setting up an own company myself and creating an own company. And at this point, this is why I tell you the story, I made the biggest mistake of my life because I wanted to combine everything. So I kept on with my day job, which was 12, 13 hours per day. And then I went home. And from 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I worked on my startup until 4 a.m. in the morning. And I cut down my sleep intentionally to 2 hours per night. And to be honest, at that time, I was young and stupid. It felt quite okay. I managed to create the startup called Ever Basics, a premium online store for men's clothes. And if you would have met me at that time, you would have thought, okay, he's doing quite well. He's on a growth path. He has his own company with great investors, a good team, and first sales. So he's doing good. But to be honest with you, this was only the surface. On the inside, it was the complete opposite. I was a wreck. More than 13 months of sleeping only 2 hours per night really had a big toll on my health and on my mental health and on my physical health. My immune system went completely havoc. I had fever like 39, 40 degrees every single day. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. But the worst thing really happened inside my head. It got completely out of control. I had so many racing minds and running thoughts and fears and anxiety in these things that sometimes I would really hit my head against the wall just to make it stop for a minute or two. But it didn't work. And this whole period of my life was so sad and so dark that, yeah, funny as it sounds from today's perspective, at some point I didn't see any other option than really putting an end to my life. And so here I am standing at this train track, the train only 10 meters away, but I was lucky because in the very last second before I could take this final step, my Labrador Collie really stopped me from doing this. And obviously this was a shock and the lowest point in my life, but at the same time, it was a big blessing and really a turning point because I was given a second chance to start all over again. And fast forward a few years, the startup, to be honest with you, was not as successful as I wanted it to be. And I identified my true passion. And this was sharing with other people what I had learned from some of the best mentors and experts in the world, how I could bring my energy back to a level I had never experienced before and really sustain my peak performance, sustain my health, and sustain my well-being. And today I'm really privileged to live my mission and work on my mission, which is to help people like you and me who live in high stress environments to upgrade their energy levels, their performance, and their health, and create a business world with less red eyes, less tired eyes, but more sparkling eyes. This is really why I'm getting up in the morning. And I'm privileged to work with very interesting people like speakers. I myself travel the world to give keynotes, management conferences. And again, thank you, enmacc and all participants for having me here. I work with many other companies you might know. And here's a statement from Julie Teichling from Ernst & Young. And I give you this one because she really brings into one sentence what we can observe in this whole business community and in our society as total. Because what she says is that strategic recovery is really one of the most underestimated success factors. 10 years ago, you would have asked company leaders and they say, okay, this is something we need for our lowest performing 5%. But today, forward-looking company leaders understand that this can really bring an edge in the competition. It's better for the employees, the company, and even the bottom line. All right, so for the next 30 minutes, I have two goals for you. Number one is I will prove to you that the only way for you to live a high energy life is to get more deep sleep, okay? And the second goal I have is to show you that the only way to get more of this deep sleep is through deep sleep densification. And we will do this in two steps. Step number one is I will explain and introduce you into the latest science, what really happens during sleep, and you will understand why the mainstream sleep advice is complete bullshit, excuse me for the word, but it is like this for people like you who work in high stress environments and what it really takes to be at 100%. All right, and in the second step, I will share you 3 very tactical quick wins, how you can instantly boost your energy, your performance, and your health without changing your lifestyle. This is the agenda, so I'm very pumped up to share this with you, and let's start with the science behind. I want to tell you a quick client story which happened around 8 months ago. I got an email in LinkedIn, an in-mail. It was a person I didn't know until then, and he wrote me, Chris, I'm following your work and maybe you can help me. And it was a senior executive, 42 years old, married, 2 kids. And what he told me is that he really feels like a zombie every single morning, exhausted, tired, and really at low energy. Now you might say, okay, then sleep a little bit more. But what he told me is that he sleeps pretty consistently for 7 or 8 hours most of the days. And to be honest with you, he's afraid, he's panicking because he told me if it continues if he continues at this low energy level, he won't be able to do his job anymore. And this is quite interesting because he does exactly what the National Sleep Foundation recommends. People like you and me should sleep between 7 and 9 hours per night, and then we should feel good. And he does exactly that, but still he feels like a zombie every single morning. So what did we do? We started to track his sleep with a sleep tracker, and then we analyzed the data. And I can tell you, the data was a complete disaster, a complete disaster. So what's going on here? And to answer you this question, let me introduce you into the latest sleep science. What you can see on this chart here is what we call a hypnogram. This is how you sleep. And you can recall that sleep is like football. It's a game of 90 minutes. What do I mean by that? I indicated here with the red chunks the sleep cycles. And what you can see is that we sleep during the night in cycles of 90 minutes each, okay? And if you get 5 of these cycles, we sleep 7.5 hours. 5 times 90 minutes is 7.5 hours. And this is why most people think that 7.5 hours is a good number to sleep. And here's my first brain tattoo for you, and this is really essential. Please, always sleep in these multiples of 90 minutes. Because if you don't, your alarm clock will wake you up in the middle of a sleep cycle from a deeper sleep stage, and the result is what we call sleep inertia. It's an impaired state of cognitive performance. So our brain really doesn't like to get woken up from a deep sleep stage. So this is my first brain tattoo for you. Now let's go deeper and zoom in into one of these cycles. And what we see is that we have 3 stages. Stage number 1 is what we call REM sleep, rapid eye movement. Why the name? If you see somebody in this stage, you see that behind the closed eyelids, the eyeballs are still moving. This is the stage where we dream. Then the second stage is the light sleep stage. And the third stage is deep sleep. And let's zoom in even deeper into this deep sleep stage, because there's a lot of almost magical things happening over there. And to be honest, I could spend 2 days just talking about deep sleep. It's really my biggest passion, but I picked out 3 essential recovery processes that are important for our discussion here. So the first thing that happens during deep sleep is we grow. What do I mean by that? Our body releases a hormone that's called human growth hormone, HGH. And this human growth hormone is kind of like the elixir for a great life. Because when we have enough of it, we are super energized, we perform better, we are fitter, leaner, stronger, and we're even younger. Meaning that our natural aging process is slowed down by this human growth hormone. And here's an important message for you. This hormone is only released during deep sleep, not during REM sleep, not in light sleep, not when we're awake right now, but really only during deep sleep. Okay, the second process that happens during deep sleep is brain detox. A scientist called Mike Nedergarden identified a system just lately, which is called the glymphatic system. We all know the lymphatic system, which is responsible for really cleaning out our body. But the lymphatic system cannot enter our brain because it's protected by the blood-brain barrier. And our brain has its own lymphatic system, which is called this glymphatic system. And this system has one single function, which is to wash out the toxic proteins that we have in our brain out of it. And these toxic proteins, they really build up at this very second. So when you use your brain, a byproduct of using the brain is these toxic proteins called beta amyloids. The glymphatic system is really the waste removal system. So when our glymphatic system is up and running, we have a clean brain. And here's the thing. This glymphatic system, again, is only running during deep sleep. Not in REM sleep, not in light sleep, but only in deep sleep. And the reason is quite simple. Our neurons, our brain cells, they reduce in volume by up to 60% during this deep sleep stage. And then the glymphatic water can wash through these spaces. If the glymphatic system does not run properly, very bad things happen. And one of them is that we really multiply tenfold at least the risk for becoming an Alzheimer patient. So all kinds of dementia and Alzheimer are very closely related to these beta amyloid plaques at our neurons. So not getting enough deep sleep multiplies our risk for Alzheimer's. All right, and the third process is that our immune system really kicks into higher gear. And I want to, what you see on this chart here is the big purple cell is some kind of invader that our body wants to get rid of. And the little blue cells here are what we call natural killer cells, NK cells. And these NK cells are kind of like the bodyguards of our body. They really want to identify and get rid of those invasion cells. And there's a pretty impressive study conducted by UCLA, the University of California. And what they analyzed is what happens when people just sleep 4 hours for one night. So they took a group of people and made them sleep one night, 4 hours. Not a week, not a month, not a year, just one single night. And now I show you how the NK cells, our immune system, developed after this night. It dropped by minus 70%. And this is really an impaired state of immune system. This is like for a 30-year-old person, an immune system of an 85-year-old person. And now you might say, okay, I don't care about it because then I catch a flu a little bit more often or whatever. But this is more serious. The thing is, if your immune system works at such a low level, the precursors for cells like cancer, for example, they run through the filter and they can develop into later stage cells which leads to the fact that you get cancer way earlier than we typically think we get it. And now you might think, okay, cancer is just for old people. I'm in my 40s, in my 30s, maybe 50s. But what we know very precisely is that these precursor cells for cancer already develop in our early 20s. The difference is only that typically our immune system is so strong that we fight them off in the early stages. But if we have an immune system like this, we run into trouble. And this is not a single study from some innovative researchers. This is so proven that an organization like the WHO, World Health Organization, has classified any kind of nighttime shift work as a probable carcinogen, meaning that it boosts your risk for cancer significantly. All right, so now you have a rough understanding what happens during this deep sleep stage. And now the question is, how much deep sleep do we need to let all this magic happen? How much do we need to get enough human growth hormone, that our brain is clean and our immune system is up and running? And to be honest with you, the answer to this question was so inspirational for me and really changed my life forever, because it's not that long. It is just 1.5 hours. Just 1.5 hours of deep sleep per night, and all recovery processes are finished. So way too much emphasis has been placed on how much total sleep we need. Most people ask themselves, do I need to sleep 6 hours or 7 or 8 or maybe on the weekend even 9 hours? This is really the wrong question. The better question is, how many hours do I need to sleep to get these 1.5 hours of deep sleep? This is the right question. And to answer this question, let me introduce you to another phenomenon that was again discovered just a few years ago. 5 minutes ago, we learned that the cycles are all 90 minutes long. Now in this chart, I've highlighted the share of deep sleep in each cycle. And what you can see is that in the first cycles, we have big chunks of deep sleep, like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. And in the later stages, it becomes less. So what we can do actually is, when we sleep a healthy sleep, just 6 hours, we can accumulate these 90 minutes. I don't say that 6 hours is the best number. We're not as far, but just to give you an idea what the mechanics here are. But this is just the theory, to be honest. The reality looks pretty different for most of us. And I've put here this red line is kind of like the average of all of my clients, which we call junk sleep. Junk sleep means that even though you get enough sleep, in this case 8 hours, you get way too little deep sleep. And the reasons for that could be many. It could be stress, it could be wrong nutrition, it could be wrong exercise, it could be caffeine, it could be alcohol. So many reasons that we'll probably discuss in the Q&A afterwards. But the result is always way too little way too little deep sleep. All right, so now you have an understanding what happens at night. And now I want to show you the results, the real results from this client that I introduced at the beginning. What you can see here is that he slept for 7 hours and 14 minutes, but only get 2 minutes of deep sleep. Just 2 minutes. We need 90 minutes, but he has 2. And to be honest with you, he didn't believe the numbers. He said this tracker doesn't work. So we needed to step up our game and apply a medical standard device, an electrocardiogram. And here I show you the results from this measure. It was even worse. Total sleep of 7 hours and 39 minutes and deep sleep less than 1 minute. And to be honest with you, he was shocked when he saw this. And little fun question for you, how many hours would this client have to sleep to get these 1.5 hours of deep sleep? As I said, it's a fun question because it's impossible. He would have to sleep 700 hours or 29 days within 1 day, which is obviously not possible. But, and what is also clear is with just 2 minutes of deep sleep, you don't have any of these magical things that I just introduced to you. And now he starts to understand why people think he's not 42, but 52, why he doesn't get rid of this cold every autumn and every winter, and why he feels so tired every single morning. This becomes clear when you have this transparency about your numbers. So to summarize this, and please excuse this provocative statement, but it's just the truth. Not enough deep sleep makes us stupid, ill, fat, and old. And we're in survival mode. But we want to be in growth mode, right? We want to have enough energy to live our ambitious life and to achieve our goals. And right now, I only talked about the health implications. What is also true is that all your cognitive functions are far away from your full potential. You're bad at problem solving. Your ability to focus is bad. Your charisma is not existent. You're bad at learning. You're less ambitious and you're less creative than you could be. So what's the solution? Well, it's not sleeping more, as we just learned, but the solution is the strategy, what we call deep sleep densification. What we do here is we pull those light sleep stages back into the deeper areas where they should be, especially in the first half of the night. And we have various levers to do that. Here's only a quick overview. We can work on your heart rate, your body temperature, your racing mind, your hormones. And here are a few charts how this looks if you master this deep sleep densification. So what you can see here is that very quickly after falling asleep, you have a very long first deep sleep stage. And in total, you have 1 hour and 24 minutes. In case you have an early flight that you catch, obviously not the best thing that we want, but sometimes we need to get up at 4:45, right? But you can still accumulate 1.5 hours of deep sleep. Is this the best night you could have? Obviously not, it's short, but it's better to have a short night with 90 minutes deep sleep instead of 1 minute, right? And there are many other cases, like if you need to work longer than you typically do, if you have a newborn in your family, if you're maybe excited because you have an important meeting the next day and wake up very often. For all these instances, deep sleep densification and the ability to get 90 minutes of deep sleep no matter what is really essential. So let me summarize this. The big secret is really when you get 1.5 hours of deep sleep, you've cracked the code to high levels of energy, to mental clarity, and to sustainable peak performance. All right, so now you understand why this is the key. And in the second part now, I want to show you how this works, how you can start your journey to get those 90 minutes of deep sleep. And this is really practical, so please be with me for the next 10-15 minutes. You will learn 3 cool quick wins. Quick win number 1 is, I want to share with you a very cool study from the Harvard Medical School. What they analyzed is how the use of technology devices impacts our sleep. And we've all heard about this blue light and the iPhone and these things, but let's go a little deeper that you really understand what's going on here. What they analyzed is this sleepy hormone that we call melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone we need to get tired and to get into deep sleep. And on this chart, picture you the typical development of melatonin over the course of a 24-hour day. So when it's light outside, it's at the lowest level, and once the darkness kicks in, it rises and reaches its maximum around 1 or 2 p.m. a.m. in the morning. This is the typical development. And this study was very simple. They took a group of people and they divided them in 2 groups. Group A was supposed to read a novel, paper-based, like with a traditional book, and Group B was supposed to read the same novel on an iPad. Okay? And now I show you how this melatonin curve developed from Group B, who read it on an iPad. And this experiment, let me add this, was very simple and short, just 5 days, and they were supposed to read 4 hours before they go to sleep. And here's the result. The iPad group melatonin curve shifted by 90 minutes. And this only after 5 days. This shows very impressively how light sensitive this melatonin hormone is. And the reason you've already heard about it is blue light. Blue light is not a light that we perceive as blue, but it's a spectrum of the light which is everywhere. And you can say that the brighter, the whiter the light is, the bigger the blue light share in it is. And this blue light has a very detrimental effect on our hormones. And let me explain you how this works. This blue light directly influences an organ that we call suprachiasmatic nucleus. You don't have to remember this name, but please remember its function, because it's our internal body clock. This little organ, which is located between our two eyeballs, really governs when we are tired, when we're awake, when we get hungry, and all these things that happen in waves over the course of a day. And this blue light tells our internal body clock that the day begins. So these are the classics that you might know. And I hear it over and over again that people tell me, hey, Chris, I'm fine because I've activated night shift on my mobile and on my tablet. And I even use Flux on my laptop. So this is not a problem for me. And this is a good starting point. So if you haven't done these things, start doing it. You're more than welcome. But please make sure there are way bigger blue light sources that all of us consume, starting with your flat screen that you have in your living room. The brighter and the clearer the picture is, the more blue light you have in it. Then take a look at the light in your offices, in the ceiling of your offices. The whiter it is, the more blue light. If you go to a shopping center, blue light everywhere. If you have an evening flight and go through the airport, everywhere blue light. Shops are not supposed to make us sleepy. They are supposed to make us buy. Then maybe you spend some time in the lounge, in the airport lounge. Look at the ceiling, blue light everywhere. Then maybe you check into a hotel on a business trip. You might think that hotels sell sleep, but actually they do the opposite. This hotel lobby tells your body that the day begins. Then you go to your hotel room, you activate the master switch, blue light everywhere. And what's for most of us, not even when you're traveling, but even at home, the last step before we go to sleep? Correct, we go to the bathroom and clean our teeth. And then you get blue light, a blue light shower from 30 or 40 centimeters directly into your eyes and into your internal body clock. So if some of this applies to your life, you can be sure that you give your body confusing signals. So we need something to correct this. And it's not an option not to travel anymore. It's not an option to get rid of light. So we need something else. And we need a tool that controls blue light. And my first quick win for you is that you get blue light blockers. These blue light blockers, really, it's very well researched by some universities. It just blocks out the blue light. So you're protected. You give your body the right signals. Now, most people, when I introduce this quick win, say, Chris, nice idea, but it really looks stupid, this glass, right? And I'm sure you think the same right now. And I get it. And I agree with you even. But the thing is, we have a trade-off here. On the one hand, we know that we need desperately 90 minutes of deep sleep, and we need that blue light destroys it. And on the other hand, we have the question how we look. And what I want to invite you is that you have more than you think occasions in your life where it really doesn't care how you look. It doesn't care when you check into a hotel how you look. It doesn't care how you look when you sit at home and watch TV. I don't tell you to go to an important business meeting or business dinner with these glasses. Obviously not. Don't go to a first date with these glasses, but there are so many more occasions where you can. Okay, so here's my first quick win for you. Really protect your melatonin with these blue light blocking glasses. Quick win number 2. We've learned that melatonin is very light sensitive, and we need this relationship because melatonin in the morning gets converted into its sister hormone, which is called serotonin. And serotonin is essential for 2 reasons. Number 1, if we have big or high serotonin levels, we are energized, we're charismatic. It's also called the executive hormone. This is the first thing. The second thing is that serotonin gets reconverted into sleepy hormone melatonin the very next evening. And we need this. So how we sleep and how deep we sleep at night gets already influenced during the day and in the morning. So we really need to care about our serotonin. And here you see how the development is. It's quite the opposite of melatonin. And the best thing to do this is really to take a long walk, about 2 hours in the morning with very bright sunlight. And even though we would all like to do this, for most of us it's unrealistic because we don't have the time. The weather isn't like on this picture. So again, we need some other tool to supplement this. And here's my second quick win for you. Get a daylight lamp. A daylight lamp like this is very easy and small. You can put it everywhere, even in your travel luggage. It emits 10,000 lux, so it's really enough to tell your internal body clock that the sun rises and that it should convert melatonin into serotonin. And just put it next to your laptop or your computer screen for 2 hours before lunch, and then you give your body the exact signals that it needs to activate the serotonin levels. It sets your internal body clock, and this is my quick win number 2 for you. Boost your serotonin, either with daylight if you have the time and the weather, but if not, artificial daylight. And especially in Europe, I would highly recommend to use this between October and March because we just don't get it otherwise. All right, quick win number 2, guys. Quick win number 3, sorry. Stop flying to New York every Saturday. Don't do it. Please give me in the chat box an idea if you do this. And typically I don't get that many answers, so let me put it differently. Don't sleep in on the weekends. It's the same. Sleeping in on weekends puts our body into a different time zone. What do I mean by that? If we typically get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and on Saturdays we're still in the sheets at 10 a.m., it's the same for our body as if we would travel westbound towards the States. And if it's not 6 hours that we sleep longer, if it's just 4 hours, it's like a flight to Rio de Janeiro. If it's just 2 hours, it's Greenland, and even 1 hour is like a flight to Reykjavik. All these things create something what we call social jet lag. And social jet lag is like the same symptoms that we get from a travel jet lag, just caused by social activities, like sleeping in on the weekends. And the results are pretty disastrous. They create problems to fall asleep. They create wake-ups during the night. And even if you're lucky enough not to suffer from these 2 things, for sure that you will have less deep sleep if you do this on a regular basis. Because the truth about sleeping in is, it's not a reward. Maybe we perceive it as a reward because we think our life is so hard and we had a tough week behind, but the truth is it's a big punishment. And there's a global experiment with 1.6 billion people, which is conducted twice per year to show this. And it's pretty impressive. What we see at the end of March, consistently over the last decades, that heart attacks rise by 24%. And you already know what I'm talking about. It's daylight savings time. So just from changing clocks by 1 hour, we see a 24% rise in heart attacks very consistently. And the opposite happens, a drop by 21% in autumn. And it's not only the heart attacks, we can see it with the number of car crashes and even suicide rates. And this only from 1 hour difference. So here's another brain tattoo for you guys. Social jet lag is the biggest enemy of deep sleep densification, really the biggest. We are creatures of rhythm. We cannot escape our evolution at that time. And consistency here is really king. So what I highly recommend and really urge you to do is to start getting up at the same time every day. And even though I cannot see your faces right now, what I typically experience if I do this in real life keynotes, that faces drop and say, okay, the other 2 quick wins I would try, but this is really too tough for me, because what if I had a tough work week behind with early flights, with late business dinners? Do you really want me to get up still at the same time? And my friends, I tell you, yes, I have. But before you leave this webinar now, please let me share a performer hack for you that will make it very, very easy for you to do it, okay? And it's a hack that comes from elite sports where guys like Cristiano Ronaldo and many, many other top athletes practice this kind of thing. And I want to tell you exactly how this works right now. So here it is. Please be with me. What I want you to do on next Saturday is to put your alarm clock at the very same time that you typically do from Monday to Friday. Like, let's say 6 a.m. in the morning, okay? The alarm goes. And then I want you to do 4 things for me. Number 1 is you go to the bathroom and you empty your bladder. Number 2 is you drink a glass of water. Number 3 is you go to the fridge and take out some snacks. You don't need to prepare a fully fledged breakfast. Just take something to eat to keep your digestive system up and running. And then you open the shades and consume a little bit of sunlight. And if this is even too hard for you, then just take your mobile phone and really gaze in it from closest distance. That's all I want you to do. And when you've done that, you go back to sleep and sleep as long as you want to. All right? That's all I'm asking for you. Now you might ask here, what's the deal in it, Chris? And let me explain it. Those 4 things is a pretty precise signal for your body clock. And everything that happens until this first get up is what we call nocturnal sleep, this nightly sleep. And then we give our body a signal, we're still in the same time zone. So our internal body clock doesn't get confused, and everything afterwards is perceived by our body as kind of a catch-up nap. So the result is no jet lag, no social jet lag. We catch up sleep deficits, we strengthen our body clock, and the result is more and more deep sleep from week to week. So this is really my quick win for you. Get up at the same time every single day. All right, this was a lot. So let me give you a quick recap. We learned that 90 minutes of deep sleep is really essential for high energy levels, for a strong immune system, and all these things. We learned that we should sleep in 90-minute cycles, like 4.5 hours, 6 hours, 7.5 hours, 9 hours. We need to protect our melatonin. We need to boost our executive hormone, serotonin, with daylight. And we need to get up at the same time every single day. And keep in mind this performer hack with these 4 steps. And let me close this virtual keynote with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And he said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So it's not about or just about knowing. And maybe you found it interesting, which would be a nice feedback, but more important is what you will really establish in your life. And this is what I really ask you to do. Let's take action. Let's lead by example and really master deep sleep densification and start talking about it with your colleague, your family, your friends. Let's create a culture where sparkling bright eyes are so much cooler than red and tired eyes. And let's inspire people around you to get those 90 minutes of deep sleep. Because I truly believe that no matter how crazy the world around you is, and especially right now it is very crazy, but with 90 minutes of deep sleep, we can achieve anything. Thank you very much for your attention. And one final remark before you hand over, Jens, if you want to get the slide deck, often people ask about it, here's a URL where you can download it. There you find anything. And I'd be very welcome if we stay connected. I cannot see you right now, but if you give me feedback how these hacks work for you, here's my contact data. And now I'm more than happy to go into a Q&A session. Please ask me anything you want. I'm here for you for the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. This was really awesome. I think lots of insights here, and as well makes you think about how you live and how we should try better and more to get more sleep, especially deep sleep. Every one of the participants has now the chance to either raise the hand, that should be a function at the bottom of the Zoom software, or directly type a question into Q&A. To bridge that, we have already some questions in, but please add some more. I'd like to start with one question, Chris.
Yeah, sure.
We hear as well always about there's a specific time you should get to sleep before midnight. That's something you hear quite often, and I'm someone who has a hard time doing that. I fall asleep really late and get started really late in the morning. Does that matter?
Yes, great question, Jens. There is this thing called chronotypes, and this is we have night owls and larks. So some people prefer to get up quite early, like me, and rather go to bed pretty early, and others are very late into the night and like to rise later. The problem is that our society highly benefits the people who get up early. So people like you who struggle to fall asleep early might have shorter nights than others. So this is number one. There's no one size fits all, but in general, we can say that the earlier hours are those where you get the most deep sleep, the most hormonal secretion, and these things. So don't spend too much time watching Netflix or whatever just because you get used to it. So if you start getting sleepy, then use this time and try to hit the sheets.
All right, good. I like to hear that. We get several questions actually around the whole topic of the glasses. Yeah, so these caught really the interest of our audience here. So can you recommend? I go through it a little bit. A specific brand of these glasses. Someone mentions they have already one, but it's the blue light filter which doesn't look orange actually.
Yeah.
So it seems to work somehow differently. And then as well, I think a very important question is how long before I go to sleep do I need to put these glasses on?
Yes. Starting with the first one, there is this one brand that I use and I recommend to my clients. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not invested in them, so I don't earn any money for mentioning this, but it's called Swanwick. It's one of the classics, but you could also go to Amazon and type in blue light blocking glasses. So there's not a specific quality in the glasses. It's pretty cheap, actually. The important thing is that it's orange, which leads me to your second question. Does it have to be orange? The answer is yes. Many opticians, or probably more, all of them, do this upselling right now and ask people to put this blue light filter in it, which is only a slight blue shade in it. And this is by far not the protection that you get from these really orange tinted glasses. So I have to disappoint you. The others don't work as good as the others. And your third question, Jens, or to the participants, how long? If you start wearing them 2.5 hours before you really fall asleep, then you're on the safe side. If it's not possible because you still have any social activities or whatever, then it's better to start 30 minutes before instead of not doing it. But with 2.5 hours, you're pretty much on the safe side.
Good, that's good to hear. Another question goes, or several questions we have around the age we have actually. So first thing is deep sleep, the number of hours we have of deep sleep, is that dependent on the age of the person? And second question, is there a way of catching up? Let's say, looking back the last 10 years, we didn't have enough of this kind of deep sleep and we have seen all the negative effects. Is there a way of catching up by living a good and healthy life in the next 10 years to come?
Yeah. To your first question, so what we typically see is that older people reduce the number of deep sleep minutes, but this is not that it's good, it's just that it's the nature, because their melatonin level in production drops. So, and this is the link actually why older people are more at risk that they develop Alzheimer's on these things, because their lymphatic system is not running as good anymore. So maybe we talk also about supplementing melatonin in pills in a second. And here we typically recommend that starting at 55 or 60 years, it actually might make sense to supplement melatonin because your natural production is not at the level that it's typically in your 30s or 40s. So the goal is really to keep up your 90 minutes until as long as you can, no matter how old you are, but it becomes harder and harder the older you get. Like with our muscles and many other things. We all know that.
If we don't train.
The second question, can you quickly repeat it?
Is there a way of this catching up in a way?
Yeah, okay. So there I need to be honest with all of you. If you haven't gotten enough deep sleep over decades, you cannot really catch it up. What you can do is to limit and reduce the damage looking forward. So only because you had little deep sleep the last 20 years doesn't mean that you need to continue. So if you now have the chance to make it better after 40 years, it's still better to have 20 years no deep sleep and the next 20 years maybe an hour, but you cannot correct those damages that happen over the last 20 years.
All right. Good and sad, but okay. Another one was if there are disturbances in the night by kids coming in or other things happening around you, some noises, how can you deal with that? Can you get back to this deep sleep immediately, or is there anything we have to do proactively?
Yes, good question. So, I mean, if the kids are very small, like babies, this is ingrained in our biology that the sleep during the first 1 or 2 years is not as good as it could be. So this is something we need to accept in the short term. What we can work on, and I see large differences here, is what happens after 2 years. I have clients where their children age 6 or 7 still sleep in the bed of the parents, which I don't want to comment from a raising up your kid perspective, I can just say that it's a huge roadblock for your deep sleep. And from this perspective, I would never recommend it. So, but even if they come during the night from their own room, you can do things in the wrong or right way. One thing is light here again. So I would recommend not to switch on the bright lights, especially not those with blue lights. So really keep it as dark as you can. The other thing is I would never go to my mobile, even though it's tempting if we think there's news we have to check or whatever. So many people, when they go to the toilet, for example, check the phone during the night. And this is obviously something that reactivates your sympathetic branch of the nervous system. Cortisol gets into your body, and this is all things that push you away from deep sleep. So try to stay as calm, as dark and as relaxed as possible, and then don't stress out. If you have one night where you had many wake-ups, this is not a problem. It becomes a problem if this happens over months and years.
Yeah. All right, there are more questions coming in, several around taking naps. I mean, does it help? Is it preventing us from having a really solid sleep during night, or how can we deal with them? What do you recommend?
Yes, in general, nap is a fantastic performance booster. The NASA has done a lot of research about it, because for the astronauts who don't get any circadian rhythm, it's really a survival technique for them. And I give you a few things that you could do to make it as good as possible. Number one is don't nap longer than 26 minutes. Why that? After these 26 minutes, it could happen that you fall into deep sleep. And when you wake up from a deep sleep stage, then you suffer this, what we just talked about, sleep inertia. So when people come to me and say, Chris, napping is not for me because I feel more tired than before, it's always because they slept too long. They laid on the couch on a Sunday, for example, and after 40 minutes, they wake up from deep sleep and then they feel just groggy. This is number one. Number two is don't do it too late in the day, because then your sleep pressure will be reduced and you might have trouble falling asleep. So do it before 4 p.m. if possible.
All right, good to understand. Looking into the questions here, several of them. One seems to be very basic, but I think it's interesting. Can you have too much deep sleep, or how does that regulate?
I haven't experienced it. I haven't read about it. What we see is that deep sleep increases if we put additional strain on our physics. Like elite athletes tend to have way more deep sleep than you and me. What we see is when people suffer any kind of injury or recover from an operation, a surgery or whatever, then I see numbers of 3 hours plus. But typically when our body has enough, it doesn't get more, or it doesn't sleep that deep.
Okay. What I feel is as well interesting, and we have here questions, is around physical activity. Some people feel that they can fall asleep more easily than if they have exercised before, if they really feel this fatigue and can move on directly to sleep. Yeah. Is that something you recommend, or when is the best time to exercise actually? Yeah,
so typically a tired mind is not enough to sleep deep. We need a tired body too. So it's a great way to really push deep sleep numbers when we exercise. But again, here it's all about timing. So what I recommend is that you do not boost your heart rate above 125 beats per minute 3 hours before you go to bed. Because typically our heart rate needs to slow down again. It takes time. And when we've exercised, the carbon dioxide in our blood is elevated. And with this elevated state, we don't fall into deep sleep. And we need a few thousand breathe outs really to get rid of this carbon dioxide. So 3 hours before, don't practice or don't exercise too hard. Light jogging, walks, yoga, and these things you can even do just before going to bed.
All right, great. If you talked about this cycle of 7.5 hours, which makes sense, and it seems to be reasonable to strive for that one. Sometimes we feel that even if you want to time it, basically getting up at 7:30 in the morning, are you at midnight really in bed, and you don't fall asleep? What happens then? I mean, how do you time that right, and how do you fall asleep actually if you have a hard time?
Yeah. The thing is, if you do this consistently, you will fall asleep faster. But on the short term, many people have trouble falling asleep. And there you really need to be honest with yourself. What's the roadblock? Is it that you exercise too late, like we just identified, and your body is not really prepared for sleep? Is it because you eat too late? Is it because your racing mind is just not switched off? So really listen into your body and identify what it is. And then we can eliminate this roadblock quite efficiently. But there's no one size fits all for that. But in general, don't go to bed if you don't feel tired, because there's no sense in sleeping 6 or 7 hours if you only stay in the light sleep phases. Really invest time in calming down your mind. Try binaural beats, try breathing exercises, start meditating really to calm down your mind, because it's the only way to get into deep sleep.
Okay. And as we are a very tech-savvy group here of people, obviously, we get some questions around technical apps. Are there any apps we can use? I've seen the Aurora Ring you have shown already. What do you recommend there? How can we sometimes as well motivate us to stick to these rules and your advice?
Yeah. What I can see in general is that people who start tracking their sleep are always more successful in changing their habits than others are, because it's really a great value when you get this instant biological feedback. When you see you eat a big plate of pasta at 9 p.m. and your deep sleep is reduced by 40 minutes. The next time you see these pasta, you make up your mind and see, does it have to be that late, or maybe I can do it at lunchtime? These kind of feedbacks are super powerful really to create and change habits. So what about technology? What I can say is that all apps that don't have any kind of physical contact to your body don't work. There is one app, and I don't want to discredit any brands, any products and these things. I just share my experience. And all the sleep apps who just open their microphone and then tell you how you slept, they cannot work. They only realize what the sound level is, and this is not precise. And the same applies, to be honest, for most fitness trackers. So those who come rather from the direction of training and these things, they don't have real knowledge in identifying recovery and especially sleep stages.
Interesting. You just mentioned the bowl of pasta, which we may consider in the evening. Is there any other thing we should be aware of? You talked about lots of hormones. Is there a certain diet which helps finding us this kind of deep sleep, or at least supporting it?
Yes, several aspects. Nutrition is a pretty complex topic. So again, here's not one size fits all. What we need to make sure is that we get enough tryptophan. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid, and it's the major building block to produce melatonin. So think about it, even if we wear blue light glasses and all these things, if we don't have the building block to produce melatonin, then our body has a problem. So tryptophan is one thing that we need to have an eye on. And the other thing is, even though everybody reacts differently to carbs, we can say that carbs in the evening, we should be cautious, because carbs actually increase the core body temperature. And what we need is a drop in body temperature, in our core body temperature, to fall into deep sleep. So we don't want to heat up our body core, and carbs do just that.
Makes sense to me. Especially in the crisis now, I hear that, I think in San Francisco, the alcohol consumption went up 42% now in the crisis.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I don't understand that, yes? So that's what we see, that people tend to drink a little bit more in this setup. Can be helpful, no, for good sleep?
Actually, it's the most used, if not to say most abused sleep aid that we have, because what it does is it reduces what we call the sleep onset latency, which means that we fall asleep faster with alcohol, and we've all experienced that. But the price for this benefit is high, because we don't fall into deep sleep with alcohol in our blood. So my recommendation is always drink alcohol as early as possible during the day, because with alcohol in our blood, we don't fall into deep sleep. But for people who suffer from a racing mind, it's sometimes the only option. So for those of you who really are very consistent in this nightcap, I highly recommend to switch to any other kind of racing mind control, because alcohol really kills your recovery at night.
And sleeping pills? I mean, these kind of, it's easy to use in a way, or anything that works in a
again, I can understand anyone who prescribes them. The problem is that the sleep that is generated by sleeping pills has nothing to do with our natural sleep. Completely different setup. It's more like being in a coma than falling asleep. It's the same as I would hit you with a baseball. You would be away from us for 7 hours. This is what sleeping pills does.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And on top of that, most of them are highly carcinogenous or causing cancer, which is again a big problem.
Okay. So even if when traveling, this melatonin pills or stuff like that, is that something which keeps you helping getting the rhythm?
Yes, melatonin is a different thing because it only supplements a hormone that our body produces itself. And I would again not recommend to use melatonin every single night, but to accelerate the process of shifting between time zones, for example, the right dose of melatonin, and I'm talking about not more than 1 milligram here, can be a booster to get into a new time zone.
Yeah. All right. I try to see here if there are more questions. I think we have answered most of the. There's again questions around the wristbands and fitness trackers. I assume you use the Oura ring, this ring, O-U-R-A is the brand.
O-U-R-A, exactly. Yeah. When people don't want to wear a ring, there's a second device that I can recommend, which is called the Whoop strap. Whoop is spelled W-H-O-O-P. It's this one here. Again, I'm not affiliated or whatever with the company, but they're also completely focused on these recovery indicators. And you cannot, it doesn't even show the time. So it's for many people not as comfortable. But again, if you don't want to wear a ring, then this might be an alternative that you want to test.
Great. Excellent. So I think we're coming to an end here. Just one last question here. What about fresh air before the night? So is there something we can do?
Yes, well, obviously the more oxygen there is in your room, the better it is. What you need to be careful of is when people start sleeping with an open window, they might get a different roadblock, which is light or noise. So this would be a trade-off, which is not good under the line. So I would recommend really to get as much fresh air into the room as you can before you hit the sheets, and then you close the windows. Except you live somewhere where nobody's around you, then obviously you can leave the window open for the whole night.
All right, great. Yes, the artificial daylight you recommended. So is it the same as working next to a window, or is that not a replacement in a way?
It depends on how cloudy the day is and these things, but in general we can say if we have not direct sunlight into our eyes, we don't get the amount we need really to give our body the precise signals. If it's the brightest window you can imagine and it's always no clouds in the sky, it might be enough, especially in summer, but especially in Germany or in other places in Western Europe, typically between October and March, we have many days where it's not enough. So I wouldn't rely on this.
All right, good. So by now, I think we received here more than 40 questions, and I tried to answer them, summarize them in a way and bring them to your attention. I think they were great answers, really helpful.
And again, guys, if you have anything that you don't want to share in this community, you can send me an email or via LinkedIn, something which I keep confidential, obviously. So I'm here for you even after this session.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And if we missed one question here, we try to answer it afterwards via email. That's possible. I'd like to close maybe with one question I see here. So Klaus, I'm not saying exactly who, is asking me, Jens, you know already this presentation. You have listened to it already. And I've seen some other participants as well. They have been on our summit last year. Okay. So question, does it work? He's asking me. I can only say, I'm not strictly following all your advice, sure, but understanding the principles, having these insights, I think is very valuable from the beginning. There are these days where you feel tired, and recapitulating a little bit, what happened yesterday, how did you sleep, and all that makes you understanding how you can live better or what to avoid in the first place. So no, I don't have the orange glasses yet. I noted it again here, so I will put my order to Amazon tonight. But no, I think it's a good start, your presentation, but I think it's a continuous process, and you're very active on LinkedIn, on other channels as well, and there's great advice to follow. And I think I can only recommend that to everyone in the call.
Maybe I can add two things here, Jens. Number one is I didn't invent those things. It's pure biology. So this is something which is well researched. The key is to creating those habits that you do it on a continuous basis. It's just pure biology. And the second thing is, like you said, obviously within 34 minutes, we only have the chance to put a few things from the iceberg. What we typically do is we coach people around 12 weeks and guide them through this process, which is way more detailed, obviously. And then we can really see how their deep sleep numbers rise into the direction of these 90 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, it was really exciting for me again. I hope for everyone as well in the audience. If you think so, we would love to see some comments as well on LinkedIn or other media. Give us some feedback as well, what we can improve. As I said, we want to make this really a series of digital online events. We planned already one for next week. Then we'll have a great speaker coming from Argus Media, Matt Monteverdi. He will talk about the gas market, so very much closer to our normal business in a way. But we're looking for topics which are a little bit aside as well, and open our minds for new and fresh ideas. So please stay tuned in the next weeks, and hope to see you again in some following webinars. Thank you very much, and have a good sleep tonight.
Thank you all for having me here. It was great fun.